Let's now dive into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Robert Keston. Let's queer up the USA view. Vital LGBTQ education advocacy, GLSEN, lays off 60% of staff. GLSEN, the nonprofit dedicated to safe schools for LGBTQ students, has laid off 60% of its workforce due to financial pressures and right-wing attacks. Executive Director Melanie Willingham-Jaggers confirmed that 18 employees were let go in a restructuring move aimed at ensuring GLSEN's survival. The layoffs affected all departments. The cuts came just a day before the Human Rights Campaign also announced layoffs, highlighting financial strains on LGBTQ advocacy groups. Since 2022, GLSEN has faced far-right misinformation campaigns and funding losses as corporate donors retreat from DEI commitments. Despite the setbacks, GLSEN says they plan to streamline its work and relaunch in mid-2025. It is symbolic of everything that is happening. There's probably not one LGBTQ organization based here that isn't also suffering that same plight. Many of them have not laid people off yet. But unless our community, the citizens within our community, start giving to the level that they need to, that's commensurate with other communities across the board, our organizations will start to disappear, very similarly to how organizations died during the second Bush administration during the economic downturn. It's interesting because in our archive, we have a poster of two events that took place at Madison Square Garden back in the 80s, both raising money for GMHC. At that time, Reagan wouldn't say gay and wouldn't say AIDS, and Bush wouldn't say AIDS and wouldn't say gay. But Madison Square Garden, using the rodeo and using Ringling Brothers, raised money, corporate money, cultural money for AIDS, for GMHC. We do not have that support now. Those kinds of organizations are running as fast as they can. Organizations are pulling out of supporting our community. We had those relationships with corporations where they liked us because we added value.
Yeah.
They don't believe we add value now. We have to change that paradigm. And that's not going to be easy because the White House and the surrounding billionaires are really pushing against it. And it's hard for our community to go up against that many billionaires. But we have to really figure out strategies to do that and save the organizations that really are the underpinnings of the success that we have had over the last 50 plus years.
And all these organizations are also probably vying for the same money, right? That's the same donors, or everybody's calling on the community to donate.
But that's why we need more people doing more.
Right.
We can't rely on just 5 people. Everybody has to give. People who have never given before. And there are plenty of people with money, but they do not give. They go to the bars, they drink, they go to the theater, they buy tickets, and I'm not talking about just gay theater. They're big donors at the Broward Center. They're big donors at the NSU Art Museum, but they don't give to our community, and that has to change.
You know, our fund had the Philanthropy Awards this past weekend, and, you know, we were talking a little bit about people were, I had a few other organizations that approached me about joining their board. And while that was very flattering, the issue is, on top of not having enough donors, we don't have enough people in our community doing work and being on these organizations and helping to support them. You know, and I think, you know, GLSEN is just an example, but, you know, there also needs to be some kind of unity amongst the nonprofits that come together and kind of try to align missions, reduce costs where they can for survival, and to do things together versus everybody being in their silo.
Right.
I don't disagree with that, but the reality is, considering the robustness of this community,
yes,
it's hard for people to just cut back and realign in that way.
Yeah.
And why should the organizations that are doing the best jobs have to sacrifice those elements when our community is not generous?
Yes. You're right.
Overall, our community is not generous. Yes, there are some people, but by and large, we are a very cheap community. And that has to change if people want to live this lifestyle and not go back to the way it was in the 60s and 70s. So let's not put the onus on the organizations that are doing the work. Let's put the onus on the community that has benefited from all these organizations doing the work, and they've never paid their fair share. We ask for the rich now to pay their fair share of taxes. We have to ask for our community, even if you can only give $100, $50, $20, but it's time to put pressure on those who can also afford to do a lot more and do not.
I agree.
That's true. Well, that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer non-profit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.